Hi, I'm Adam Gaines and welcome to Make Gains. Today, we're going to be talking about Gen Z and their spending habits. Let's get into it.
The reason why we look so frivolous to boomers, Gen Xers and them, is because we 100% live frivolous lives. Like, we are taking trips, we're buying designer things, we're doing all these things that were reserved for very wealthy people in their time. But it's because we've lost all hope, at least for most of us, because I promise you, I will not be buying a house anytime soon on my salary. If I buy a house, it's going to be one of my other things, either my startup or content creation. But it's not going to be my job, girl. Because we've lost that hope, you're like, might as well live the best life I possibly can. Might as well give them, my cat, my dog, the best life I can possibly give them. Just because it doesn't matter how much you save. You will never be able to afford a house, a farm, horses, all these dreams that were sold on your kids. And the thing that people, like, I know we think about it now, is that, you didn't need to be a manager, general manager, CEO of a company to own a house or a piece of land back then. You could literally save your way into riches. That is a concept that does not exist. We've just even gotten a notification from the government that they're going to hike up the taxes, and inflation is also going up. Fun times, fun times. Another thing my friend was talking about is we're this far into the future. Everything is easier. There's tech. There's all these things. Like, we're so advanced. And you'd expect that things getting better, but the quality of life is just steadily getting worse for everyone. And like in 10 years, it's going to be way worse than it is now. The gap between the rich and the poor is going to be so much more than it is now. And obviously, like, I know why it is like that. But it's just very insane to think about. And once you think about all these things, it just gets overwhelming. And you're like, listen, let me just take a trip. Let me enjoy life while I can now. Because for sure, like, if there's one thing I know for sure, is in 10 years, things are going to be way worse than they are now. And I'm not going to save myself into retirement. I'm not going to save myself into a house or a farm. Might as well have a good time while I can. And that is why we're able to, there's no hope. That is why we're living seemingly good lives, because we have lost all hope.
I feel sorry for Gen Z because while I don't agree with much of what she's saying, what I will for sure agree with is that the prospect of buying a home for Gen Z is scary. Like, for my kids, knowing what home prices cost and what you can get a starter home for now compared to, when I was younger, it's scary. Like, you used to could buy a 2-bedroom house for $100,000 and it'd be new. It might not be close to the city or anything, but you're getting a new house for $100,000, $120,000. Now you never find that. So I get what she's saying. They've lost all hope, so now they're just going YOLO and spending on whatever. So living a rich lifestyle because they don't have any hope in the future, which is extremely sad. But there is hope if you make the right decisions and if you make gains in your life by doing the difficult things now. I've said before on my channel that it's going to be hard, but you can either choose to do hard now or you can choose to do hard later. It's the same thing with your physical health. You can work hard now and it'll make your life easier when you get older, or you can not do the hard things now and it's going to be more difficult for you when you get older. So same applies to our finances. I would encourage you to don't buy into, I'm just going to blow all my money now and live a rich lifestyle now because I'll never be able to have these things. If you have that attitude, then you are right. You never will be able to have those things. But if you can start saving, whether it's $100, $200, $300 a month, you're going to build up wealth over time. But it's a consistent habit, consistent small habits over time.
Gen Z is going to save capitalism despite being the main group talking about anti-capitalism. Gen Z is driving the luxury goods sector right now. That is huge and very contradictory for a group, again, that claims to be against capitalism. But it's not like Gen Z really has that much money, even though a lot of them are still at home or staying at home and saving money. There have been numerous reports about how Gen Z is sustaining this lifestyle using buy now, pay later platforms. And retailers are literally banking on the fact that Gen Z is going to continue spending like this. But there's also the possibility that they'll just default on all these purchases that they never could afford in the first place. Very unsurprising from a human behavior perspective that a group that claims to be anti-capitalist is not actually going to take on any of the inconveniences of actually practicing anti-capitalism. Gen Z will definitely be more mad at capitalism during the recession, but we'll see if they'll actually start to put their money where their mouth is.
So they're driving capitalism while being against capitalism. Makes sense.
I'm about to blow your mind. Gen Z has gone absolutely crazy when it comes to spending money on watches. The average price of a watch purchased by a Gen Zer in 2024 is almost $11,000. Is that not insane? The average millennial spend, on the other hand, is less than half of that, and the average spend by a baby boomer is under $3,000, but they're probably not even capable of opening the PDF from which this study comes, which was conducted by Watchfinder, by the way. Here's some more bonkers numbers. 41% of Gen Z came into possession of a luxury watch in the last 12 months, and over a third think that watches are a better investment than gold or even real estate. The insanity continues. Rolex, of course, is featured on the top of the list of Gen Z's favorites, followed by Cartier, who, quote, is also experiencing real momentum in 2024, especially small and discreet models like the Crash or the Tank. We are certainly seeing strong interest in Cartier from Gen Z. But what is causing Gen Z to behave like a bunch of lunatics when it comes to watches? The study continues. A staggering majority of Gen Z respondents credited social media trends and influencers for influencing their choices. Quote, TikTok influencers like Vukum or Mike Nouveau are garnering millions of views from videos focused on live watch negotiations. This gives Gen Z watch enthusiasts important exposure to luxury models, heritage brands, and what represents good value in a purchase. This study leads me to ask, why am I not getting paid more? Let me know what you think in the comments.
So Gen Z's buying watches. And it did say luxury watches, they consider anything over, I think it was $1,100, which is quite a lot to be spending on a watch. But, I do agree that with social media, it does make things that are not really normal in real life feel like a little more normal, because you're seeing lots of your favorite influencers that are all living this lifestyle, many of them financing it through credit. And you feel like you should be able to take part in that too. So I've got a job. I don't have a house payment. Might as well spend $10,000 on a watch, right? I mean, it's what they're doing, right, wrong, or indifferent.
I've been on perfume TikTok recently for some reason, like people with like 30 different types of perfume showing off their collection. And I want to talk a little bit about this trend of like luxury fragrance, especially among Gen Z, and what it reveals about how younger generations view money and identity. I'm a CFP. I talk about money psychology, and I talk about social trends and how they connect to financial psychology. And to me, Gen Z isn't just buying perfume, they're building these like scent wardrobes, as someone put it, spending hundreds on fragrances to match different moods, aesthetics, personas. And, back in my day, it was about having a signature scent, but now it's about having the right scent for all these different versions of yourself. And my take as a financial psychologist is that this trend really illustrates how Gen Z approaches luxury spending and how it's different than previous generations. They're not necessarily chasing status symbols. They're buying experiences, identities, emotional connections. This is a generation that really grew up on social media, that feels increasingly lonely and fragmented and often doesn't have a community. And, while trends like these seem superficial on its face, it actually reflects a generation that's deeply focused on self-expression and authenticity and the desire for connection. And obviously the downside of this is lots of spending, mass consumerism. Gen Z statistically is more likely to carry credit card debt. They're way more comfortable using credit cards. I also think the proliferation of spending on social media, which is only growing, is going to just ramp up this consumerism, especially when you market products that make younger generations or really anybody feel like owning this thing will make me have an identity or feel closer to a certain identity. And I think we're going to see a lot more of these types of trends in the future. I think it's important to think about the underlying cause of this type of spending and these types of spending trends instead of just the spending trend on its face.
So I don't think this is anything new. I mean, forever marketing has been trying to make people feel like if you buy a certain product, you'll get the identity that's associated with that. And, that's been brand names whenever I was younger. So I remember it was Polo and Tommy Hilfiger and North Face, all those things. There was associations with that brand that if if you wore those clothes, that you were cool. And they're doing it now. It's just the difference is now that's done through influencers versus commercials, which is what it was when I was younger. And I see it with my kids. I mean, they'll watch their favorite YouTubers, and my daughter was wanting to buy this makeup product because it's so much better than all the other makeup products that have gone before it. And it just happens to be 3 times the price, and they personalize it for you. So it really is about that identity, that personalization, and it is a luxury spin that is, I mean, who knows if it's any different than the other things, right? But those brands are doing a really good job of their marketing to make you feel like it is.
Do you have any advice for our generation when it comes to budgeting?
Put yourself first. Make sure to invest in your relationships with your friends, no matter what cost. Travel the world. Money will come back. Experiences won't.
Don't overthink it. You don't need the shoes most of the time. It's hard to budget when you don't have money to save. So if you can't budget right now, even just thinking about budgeting is budgeting. So you got this.
Really intensely and rigorously planning how I'm going to use each dollar that I have. Fortunately, I'm at a lot more stable of a financial position than I have been in the past. Having been there before, I think that anxiety is something that never really leaves you. So for me, budgeting is, I think, planning for the worst.
Listen close. Say you want like this shirt. You're going to look at the shirt and be like, is this going to make me like happy? Or am I just like spending to spend? Because sometimes you go to the mall and you're like, I have to buy clothes. But you know what? You don't have to buy clothes. And your bank account does not have to buy clothes.
Your bank account does not have to buy clothes. I also like thinking about budgeting is budgeting. So these are advice from Gen Z to Gen Z. I would say that thinking about budgeting is not the same as budgeting. You actually need to write out a budget and write out how much you're bringing in and how much is going out, and then make sure that how much is going out is less than what you're bringing in. And that allows you to save. But I do think, I mean, it is really interesting to me that there is this weight on the experiences, the doing things with friends, and the what is going to make you happy. And I would like to remind you all that buying things never makes you happy. I think that is an illusion, and people think that whenever you buy a certain product, it's going to make you happy. I can tell you that there was a research done on happiness, and one of the things I remember being interesting was that they were talking about purchases, and they were saying that there's dopamine hits from adding things to your cart. Okay, so whenever you're shopping online, the adding things to your cart is going to give you a dopamine hit. Also, packages showing up at your house is going to be a dopamine hit. So even though their research showed that having the thing didn't really add any extra value to your life, but the feeling of putting something in your cart and then the feeling of having something show up and being able to open it because it feels like a present, right? That is what people are really going for. The same thing with shopping in a store. They said swiping your card, there's a dopamine hit that comes along with that. Whereas if you switch it to cash, then it's much more difficult and people don't want to do that as much, or it's harder to do. So I definitely would recommend switching over to cash, especially if you're in debt. Okay, because if you can't be trusted with a credit card to pay it off at the end of every month, then I believe Caleb Hammer says it best, you are not a credit card person. So don't use it. Instead, use cash. Make sure that you're actually budgeting, not just thinking about budgeting. And don't judge whether you need something on whether or not it'll make you happy. Okay? Because the Bible says our heart is deceitful above all things. So we can't trust ourselves to know what's truly going to make us happy. Because I can tell you, a shirt is not going to make you happy. Relationships will make you happy if they're good relationships and supportive relationships. However, that doesn't mean that you need to invest a lot of money in those relationships. You need to invest time in those relationships. So really think through, what is the motivation of me purchasing this? Am I trying to get some kind of identity or status out of this? Am I buying this because I think it's going to make me happy? I can tell you that it won't, okay? Whether that's a car or clothing or a vacation. Vacations are fun. I love vacations, probably more than many people. But what I can tell you is that going into debt for vacation is not worth it. Okay, you need to save your money. That way you're not robbing from your future self to bring yourself temporary joy. We're about making gains, and we're about blessing our family's future because of decisions we're making today to live within our means, to budget, and to do things that are smart.
Gen Z gets mocked for their spending habits, but some of our so-called quirky tricks are actually pretty genius. Here are some frugal Gen Z tips that other generations make fun of, but they actually work. Number 1, living with parents for now. Rent is insane, so staying home longer means less debt and more savings. There might be a stigma around still living at home as an adult, but if our parents will have us, then it's a huge privilege that allows us to stretch and save our funds. Next is loud budgeting. Saying I can't afford that out loud keeps spending in check and normalizes budgeting. And vocalizing it enforces our financial boundaries with others. Soft saving instead of hustle culture. Soft saving is saving, yes, but it's also setting boundaries around finances and making sure we still feel fulfilled in the present. Saving is so much more flexible, and we won't run ourselves into the ground trying to pay off debt. It'll still be there after a weekend getaway, and we're much less likely to burn out. Romanticizing mundane purchases. Big expenses are out of reach. Buying a home? Not happening. Instead, Gen Z is thoughtfully investing money into things that nourish our emotional and physical well-being. Yes, I am having that avocado toast for breakfast because it protects me from the more toxic coping mechanisms like overspending and using consumption to deal with life. Reusable water bottles. Stanley Cup jokes aside, skipping single-use water bottles saves a ton of money. We are not leaving the house without our emotional support water bottle. One of my personal favorites, running errands with friends. Carpooling and turning chores into social time means that you save money on gas and you still get to hang out and enjoy time with your friends. A lot of Gen Zers also have a dedicated day for errands, which reduces trips and saves money on gas. So mock them all you want, but these tricks actually work. Which ones would you try?
I love it. I think a lot of those are great, and especially the living with your parents to save money. I mean, if you have the opportunity to do that, you should. I tell people all the time, you need to sock away as much money while you're living with your parents as you can. That way you actually have a shot at being able to pay for a house. Okay, because while homes feel out of reach, and in large part they are, if you work hard towards saving money and you prioritize that savings, then you're going to put yourself into a situation where you will be able to afford a home someday. Now, it might be a starter home, might be a condo, who knows? But if you go out and you get an apartment right off the bat, that is money that you could be setting aside. And if an apartment costs $1,500 a month, something like that, and you're able to take that same amount of money and you're able to save it, you'd be surprised how quickly you're going to have enough money to put a down payment on a house. So really make efforts to do that. And, I love those other things too, like turning shopping into a little social get together where you go with your friends, save money on gas, speaking that you can't afford something. Yeah, all great advice. So keep doing those kind of things, keep making those gains, and then eventually you will put yourself in a place where you can afford to have those things that everyone thinks is out of reach, because it won't be forever. So anyway, I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, please like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow and trying to build our audience. And if you know anyone who you think would be interested in this type of content, please share. So again, reminding you to make gains, save that money, and we'll talk to you next time.